Well, people, I read this article. This probably will date me. I didn't read it 50 years ago, but probably 40 years ago at least I read this. And it's stuck in my mind. I still have it. Thank God I printed it out. But this was an experiment they were trying to come up with how to keep America and the people from dying off, making them extinct. It says, it's long been argued that should humanity ever go extinct, it will be because of overpopulation and the depletion of all resources. It's kind of bullshit, really. The reality, though, is that human society is already in the throes of engineering collapse because of save the world depopulation and population control efforts disguised as sustainability. Where have you heard that word before? Oh, the UN. In case you haven't noticed, the globalists are trying really hard to herd everyone into a multicultural smart cities while restricting and monitoring their every mood in the interest of climate change. They are also viciously demoralizing people, including through the LGBT pervasion, which is spreading like a virus. Violence is also on the rise as the human herd forces itself against its will into this new globalist utopia, breaking down both morally and mentally. This war against humanity was depicted, as it turns out, to experiments on mice that were conducted many decades ago. And you're going to love this because this comes from the same place Fauci did. Research is funded by the National Institute of Health. Would end up predicting what would eventually become of humanity when thrust into the confines of a highly controlled, progressive society. The animals started out vibrant, but eventually all died off, just like we are seeing with humanity today. Sustainability is a code for the engineered breakdown and destruction of the normal human society. A man named John Calhoun put together one particular experiment he called Universe 25, in which mice were given an unlimited supply of food, water, and social engineering in an artificial utopia. But they were placed in enclosed living quarters with one another, much like smart cities today. The sustainable environment in which Calhoun placed the mice initially caused them to thrive. They were protected from predators and disease, and after all that time in the world to make friends, mate, multiply, and just enjoy their lives. At the peak, Universe 25 had 2,200 mice. After that, the mice started to exhibit serious behavioral problems that mirrored what we are witnessing today with humanity. Concerning reproduction, the mice stopped engaging in courtship. Female mice began to abandon their young, and homosexuality among all the mice began to increase. At day 600, following peak production, Calhoun observed that the mice were clearly on their way to extinction. While they were physically able to reproduce, the mice appeared to lose all the social skills necessary to create healthy, happy families. About every 60 days, the population doubled as the mice filled the most desirable spaces within the pen. When the population reached 620, the population growth slowed to doubling down about every 145 days as the mouse society began to hit problems. After day 315, the mice reproduction began to slow. When the number of rodents reached 600, a hierarchy was formed with the so-called wretches appeared. Once the wretch group was formed, the larger rodents began to attack the group, with results with many wretched males becoming to back up. After 315 days, the mice reproduction began to slow. When the number of rodents reached 600, a hierarchy was formed with the so-called wretches appeared. Once the wretch group was formed, the larger rodents began to attack the group with results that many wretched males began to collapse psychologically. As a result, the females did not protect themselves and in turn became aggressive towards their young. Women who became like men displayed true toxic masculinity. Does this sound familiar? In the realm of humanity today, we are seeing the rise of incapable men with passions accompanied by loud and most proud and most beastly empowered women with haughty aggression who are rapidly occupying all seats of power, control, and influence, all by design, just to be clear. Well, humans are much more complex than mice. The similarities between what happened to the mice in Calhoun's experiment and what has happened to humanity today are striking. Calhoun's mice were given everything they needed without a fight. So why did they start to decline? Perhaps because things became too easy in a sense. Their environment was unnatural, and their normal behaviors and instincts squelched and eventually resulted in irreversible mortality. We're seeing the same thing with humanity, as rampart excess has birthed the cult of LGBT, which is now praised as a deep beacon of society. Homosexuality and transgenderism are encouraged while normacy is hated. Men are now considered to embody toxic masculinity whenever they act like real men. And women, unless they replace these men with their own brand of actual toxic masculinity, are also degenerating to fulfilling traditional female roles. Everything is inverted. Women who act like men and men who act like women, even if they are in heterosexual relationships, display transgenderism in many of the same ways as the universal 25 mice. When men are stripped of their masculinity and role in society, everything collapses. One thing Calhoun noticed towards the end of the mouse paradise experiment was the emergence of a new class of male rodents. This he dubbed the beautiful mice. They appeared healthy, but their spirits were dead. Calhoun described this beautiful mice in a paper called Death Squared. Autistic-like creatures capable only of most simple behaviors compatible with psychological survival emerged out of this process. Their spirit had died. They were no longer capable of executing more complex behavior. The perceived loss of tension, pressure, and distress was in Calhoun's mice paradise, which runs contrary to real life. It results in male mice losing their gusto and the female mice becoming isolated and aggressive. In many ways, a transgender role reversal had taken place. Following this, things degraded even further to the point that the mice started to engage in cannibalism, pansexualism, violence, and ultimately leading to every last one of them dying and the entire colony going extinct. Calhoun repeated this experiment 25 times, and each time the result was the same. I'm going to zoom that. Calhoun repeated the experiment 25 times. The results were always ended up the same. We are currently witnessing direct parallels in today's society. Expo News asks, weak feminist men with little or to have no skills and no protective instincts, and overly agitated and aggressive females with no maternal instincts. The latest news about the approaching end of civilization as we currently know it can be found at Collapse News. And that's about it, people. But I'm telling you what, when you get overpopulation, things go downhill. Like I said about the men not being masculine anymore, not being protective. We see that every day. We see more and more women taking up the role of the man. This was engineered on purpose. Now, I've never went to this collapse news. Maybe I should. But I'll put a link to this, people. This experiment, like I said, that experiment, he tried that 25 times and the results were the same. I hope you guys can see that, and that's where we're heading. Now you got that, our ex-rainbow President Obama, he's trying to push this homosexuality and transgenderism down our throats. He's been doing this since the year 2000. But this thing from the United Nations, sustainability, is a code for the engineered breakdown and destruction of normal human society. I'll put a link to this. It would be better if you guys was to read this yourself. I'm trying to read this and as I go along, and I just had some soda crackers and some cheese, and the words ain't coming out quite right. I'll put a link to this, people. Please watch this. Thanks for watching.